Welcome to the Explainer. You know, the whole era of just making AI models bigger and bigger, well, it might be coming to an end. Today, we're going to look at what's next. And we're getting our cues from the very people who built this AI boom. And it turns out they think the future is going to look way different.
This one sentence right here is what unites three of the absolute titans of deep learning, Yann LeCun, Ilya Sutskever, and Demis Hassabis. And what this signals is a massive shift for the entire field. I mean, think about it. These are the guys who built the scaling revolution, and now they're the ones saying, okay, we've hit a wall. So here's what it all boils down to. The race isn't about who can build the biggest model with the most data anymore. Nope. The focus is shifting to something much deeper, finding fundamentally new principles for how to build intelligence itself. We're talking about a search for a much more real, grounded understanding of the world. Okay, let's really get into this. If just scaling up isn't the answer, then what exactly is the problem? Well, while all three of these visionaries agree on the main issue, they each have a totally different diagnosis for why the current approach is just not going to cut it. So first up, you've got Yann LeCun, and he does not mince words. For him, the way we build large language models today, it isn't just a little flawed. He literally calls it a dead end. Now, that's not just asking for a small tweak. That's saying we need to pull a U-turn and find a completely new road. LeCun's argument really comes down to this. LLMs are just wildly inefficient. They have to see practically all the data on the planet to learn stuff that a human kid can figure out with just a handful of experiences. And for him, that's proof positive they don't have a real model of how the world works, which leads directly to all the crazy hallucinations and their inability to truly reason. And then we have Ilya Sutskever, who was one of the masterminds behind the scaling revolution in the first place. His take is a little different, more evolutionary. He doesn't see scaling as a mistake at all. In fact, he thinks it was a totally necessary step that got us to where we are now. But he's convinced that step has pretty much run its course. Sutskever's critique is, a bit more practical. For one, we're literally running out of good data on the internet to keep feeding these giant models. But more importantly, they're static. They do all their learning up front, and then that's it. They can't just adapt or learn new things on the fly. He's sure there's some key principle we're missing, something that would unlock that kind of continuous, rapid learning. And finally, there's Demis Hassabis over at Google DeepMind. He uses this brilliant metaphor. He calls today's AI jagged. And it's perfect, right? These systems can be totally superhuman at some things, like playing chess or folding proteins, but then they can be comically, laughably bad at common sense stuff a toddler could figure out. For Hassabis, it's really an architectural problem. He believes that fundamental pieces of intelligence are just missing from the design, things like a solid memory system or real causal reasoning. And you can't just scale your way into inventing those. All scaling does is make the parts you already have bigger. It can't create brand new ones out of thin air. So what do we have? We've got three totally different diagnoses. It's a dead end, it's an unfinished revolution, and it's a jagged, incomplete system. And just as you'd expect, these different perspectives lead to three completely distinct and honestly fascinating blueprints for how to build what comes next. Let's just quickly break this down. You've got LeCun, the architect, who wants to build these modular systems that create an internal model of the world, predicting reality, not just the next word. Then there's Sutskever, the steward, who's on this quest to find a brand new fundamental principle of learning so AI can adapt all the time. And then you have Hassabis, the biologist, who's looking at the only working model of general intelligence we've got, the human brain. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Because if you peel back the layers on these three different approaches, you find out they're all wrestling with the exact same incredibly deep problem. And it's a problem that doesn't come from computer science. It comes from physics. The problem is something called gradient collapse. Okay, what does that mean? Well, think of a gradient as a path that tells a system which way to go to get smarter. But as a system gets more and more complex, the number of possible paths just explodes. The whole landscape turns into this chaotic mess. The path, the gradient, just vanishes, and the system is completely lost. It can't learn anymore. And that right there, that is the real question. It's the secret challenge at the absolute heart of the race to AGI. It's not about making a system that knows more stuff. It's about making one that doesn't just fall apart and get lost as it tries to make sense of an infinitely complex world. This chart just illustrates the shift in thinking perfectly. The new frontier isn't raw computation or just cramming in more knowledge. No, it's about coherence, being able to hold together a stable model of the world. It's about navigatability, being able to find a path forward. And ultimately, it's about what we're calling gradient survival. Okay, so this race against chaos isn't just some abstract philosophical debate. These guys have actual timelines in mind, and their very different approaches have huge implications for how we need to think about AI safety and who gets to control it. So, when could AGI actually happen? The predictions are kind of all over the place. You've got Hassabis on the most aggressive end, saying we could be there in as little as 5 to 10 years. Sutskever sees huge breakthroughs just around the corner, while LeCun thinks it's going to be a more gradual evolution over the next decade or two. And their ideas on how to manage this thing, they couldn't be more different. LeCun wants a totally open, decentralized, open source world to stop a few big companies from controlling AGI. Sutskever argues for the exact opposite: extreme caution, treating superintelligence like a new form of life you have to keep contained. And Hassabis is proposing a middle ground, a global, collaborative effort, kind of like a CERN for AI. So the idea we just keep coming back to is this. The whole quest for AGI, it's not really a computer science problem anymore. It's become a physics problem. It's all about how you build a system that can hold itself together and find a way forward in a universe that is constantly trying to pull everything into chaos. And this forces us to totally rethink what intelligence even is. Maybe it's not about consciousness or thinking in the way we imagine it. Maybe at its most fundamental level, intelligence is simply the act of survival. It's the ability to hold your structure together against the constant, relentless pull of entropy. Which leaves us with this final, just staggering question, and it applies to AI, it applies to us, to human civilization, maybe to any thinking thing anywhere in the universe. As our world and our tools get more and more complex, can any form of intelligence actually hold itself together? The answer to that, well, it might just define our entire future.